At the community block party, my neighbor got on the microphone, tapped it twice, and said, "I have something to say about the Smiths." That's us. In front of 40 people, she accused my wife of cheating, my kids of stealing, and me of running an illegal business from my garage. I stood there, mouth open, heart racing. Everyone went silent. I thought it was over, until she pulled out photos. Doctored. Fake. But one of them had our house keys visible on the counter. The next morning, our door was wide open, and she was standing in the kitchen. Port Orchard, Washington. That's where this all went down. Small town, mostly quiet, the kind of place where people leave their doors unlocked and still trust each other at cookouts. Or at least they used to. My name's Derek. I'm 43, married to Trina for almost 12 years. We've got 2 boys, 11 and 8. I repair old pinball machines and jukeboxes out of my garage. It's niche, but I love it, and it pays enough for us to get by. Trina works part-time at the local community college teaching art, and the rest of her time goes to the boys and keeping the house from falling apart. We moved into this neighborhood 5 years ago. It wasn't fancy, but it was safe and quiet. That was before Carol moved in across the street. Carol showed up about a year after we did. White hair, early 60s maybe, loud laugh, freshly divorced. She introduced herself with banana bread and 1,000 questions. She seemed nice. Asked about our kids, my work, what Trina did. At first, we thought she was just lonely. But then small things started happening. Trash cans tipped over, not just ours, but mostly. Mail missing. My pinball parts and vintage tools arriving opened or not at all. A weird scratch down the side of our car. Once, our dog came back inside with a clump of rat poison in her mouth. We rushed her to the vet, and she survived. I didn't think it was Carol at the time. I figured maybe some neighborhood kid or some sick stranger. Then we got an anonymous letter from the HOA. It said I was running an illegal business from home. They included 2 blurry black and white photos, one of me in the garage, another of some old guy dropping off a jukebox. I kept it together. I sent them a response, explained it wasn't a storefront. I didn't have customers coming in and out, no signage, no traffic. Just me, fixing stuff. The HOA dropped it, but the seed was planted. Trina started noticing Carol watching from her window. Not just once or twice. Every damn day. If we took out the trash, she was there. If we played catch with the boys, she was there. Always watching, never smiling. Then came the day of the block party. It was a Saturday afternoon in June. Sun was out, grills were going, kids were running around. Everyone brought something: potato salad, burgers, beers. Someone brought a speaker, and a mic. Music played. It was nice. Normal. Until Carol walked up to the mic. She tapped it twice, like she was checking if it worked. Everyone got quiet. "I have something to say about the Smiths," she said, calm and clear. Not angry. Not shaking. Just sure. And then, she unloaded. She said Trina was cheating with our UPS driver. Bet he came by every Tuesday while I was working and did more than deliver packages. She said our boys were stealing from porches. That she'd seen them take mail and packages from 2 different homes. Then she looked directly at me and said I was running an illegal, cash-based laundering operation from my garage. Said I was probably fixing things as a cover for moving money. I froze. Trina dropped her plate on the sidewalk. People went silent. Some looked at us. Others looked away. Then she reached into a bag and pulled out a manila folder. Photos. Printed in color. She passed them around. One showed Trina laughing on the porch with the UPS guy. Another had our oldest son standing near a neighbor's package. One showed me inside my garage, wires and tools spread everywhere like some kind of crime scene. And then there was one that made my stomach twist. It was our kitchen, our keys sitting on the counter with a red circle drawn around them. I didn't know what to say. I just stood there while neighbors passed the photos like we were a damn exhibit. We left early. Didn't say goodbye to anyone. That night I barely slept. Neither did Trina. The boys didn't understand everything, but they knew something was wrong. We locked the doors. We shut the curtains. We sat there in the dark, staring at each other like we were waiting for the next hit. At 6:13 a.m., I heard the front door. It was wide open. Carol was in our kitchen. No shoes. No apology. Just standing there, like she belonged. "I just wanted to make a point," she said, calm as ever. Her eyes were cold. I called the cops. They came, took her outside, talked to her. They asked if anything was stolen. Nothing was. No damage. Just her in our house. They didn't arrest her. Said there was no sign of forced entry, and that it could have been a mistake. A misunderstanding. Called it a neighbor dispute. That's when it hit me. I couldn't count on anyone else to fix this. Carol had already poisoned our name, our reputation. And now she'd crossed a line that couldn't be ignored. She thought she was smart. She had no idea what I was willing to do. After the cops left that morning, I checked every window and door. No signs of forced entry. Nothing broken. But the photo, that photo, kept burning in my mind. The one with our house keys on the counter. I remembered it then. A week before the block party, Trina had dropped her purse near the front door, and the keys spilled out. She took a photo of something on the counter for her mom, probably had no idea the keys were in frame. She must have posted it to her private Facebook. Carol somehow got that photo. That meant she was watching us online too. Not just in person. We changed the locks that day. I installed 2 security cameras, one over the garage, another facing the front porch. I even bought a cheap trail cam and strapped it to the tree in our front yard. I wasn't taking chances anymore. I also started digging. Carol wasn't on Facebook under her real name. But I remembered that when she brought us cookies that first week, she said she used to work at Harborview Medical Center in Seattle. Said she'd been there for 20 years before retiring. I started searching. It didn't take long. She'd been fired. Not retired. Fired. 3 years ago for breach of patient confidentiality and harassment of co-workers. She'd used a work computer to dig into patient records, friends, neighbors, ex-husbands. Used the info to shame people in online posts. Someone reported her. She was escorted out and banned from the property. I printed every article I found. Every news clip, every screenshot. I made a file of my own. But I wasn't ready to strike yet. 2 weeks later, Trina got pulled into a meeting at work. Someone had sent her boss an envelope. Inside were printed photos, those same ones from the block party, along with an anonymous note saying Trina was sleeping with delivery men and bringing shame to the school. They didn't fire her. But they gave her a warning and told her to be careful about her image. She cried that night. That was the last straw for me. I started watching Carol like she watched us. She went out twice a week. Wednesdays and Saturdays. Always to the same places. Groceries on Wednesday. Then on Saturday, she'd go to the senior center for bingo night. I waited. 3 Saturdays later, she left at 5:15 p.m. At 5:30, I was across the street in her yard. Not breaking in, just walking around. Looking. Her side gate was open. In her backyard, behind the garden, was a shed. Old padlock. Rusted. I used my phone to take pictures through the crack in the wood. Photos. Stacks of them. I could see envelopes. Labeled folders. She wasn't just targeting us. There were others. I didn't go inside. But I had enough. I took my photos and left. The next day, I made 5 anonymous packages. Each one had the following: a copy of the articles about her being fired, a photo of her standing in our kitchen, my trail cam photo of her peeking into someone's mailbox, a typed letter explaining what she'd done to us. I mailed them to 5 neighbors she was closest with. One of them was the HOA president. 3 days later, the HOA announced an emergency meeting. We showed up. So did Carol. It didn't go how I thought it would. She walked in with a binder and a smug smile. And she flipped it all. She said I was stalking her. Said she caught me trespassing on her property. Said I'd doctored everything. Then she pulled out screenshots from a Facebook page she claimed was Trina's, photos of Trina in bikinis, laughing with men, holding drinks. Only it wasn't Trina. It looked like her, but it wasn't her. I realized then. Carol had gone deep into some online rabbit hole, found someone who resembled Trina, and built a whole fake profile. Half the room didn't know what to believe. I left that meeting more angry than ever. Not because she was winning, but because she was so good at twisting things. So I changed my plan. I wasn't going to fight her in public anymore. I was going to destroy her quietly. I started digging into her past harder. Pulled court records. Talked to a guy who used to be her neighbor in Tacoma. He said she tried to get his wife fired from a daycare job after a disagreement over parking. Another guy told me she filed noise complaints on him for 6 months straight, until he finally moved. Carol had a pattern. Find someone. Get in their head. Break them. Push them out. I wasn't going anywhere. So I got help. There was a woman named Susan on the next block. Soft-spoken. Older. She'd been quiet at the block party. I hadn't seen her much since. One day I ran into her while walking the dog. I asked her if she'd gotten anything weird from Carol lately. Her eyes widened. She said, "You too?" I invited her over. Told her everything. She told me Carol had once accused her of feeding squirrels poison nuts, and sent a letter to her church saying she was a bad influence. Her husband had died the year before. Carol told people Susan let him drink himself to death. And just like that, I wasn't alone. Susan had stories. And she had evidence. Together, we started finding more people. Quiet neighbors who Carol had scared off, one by one. Now we had a group. Now we had a plan. And Carol was about to find out what happens when people stop being scared. With Susan on my side, everything changed. We weren't just 2 people who hated Carol. We were people with stories, proof. And soon we found more. There was Greg, a quiet guy 2 houses down. Carol told the HOA he had a meth lab in his basement. He didn't. He worked nights at a chemical plant and slept during the day. She used the smell of his work clothes as evidence. The HOA fined him $800 before the truth came out. Then there was Angela, a single mom with a teenage daughter. Carol said her daughter flashed boys at the bus stop. That lie spread fast. The kid had to switch schools. Angela looked like she hadn't slept in a year. All of us had been victims of the same thing. Lies. Half-truths. Whispered rumors and mailed-in complaints that made our lives hell. And nobody had connected the dots. Until now. I kept quiet in public. Played it cool. Let Carol think she won. She still waved to people, still walked her dog like nothing was wrong. Still smiled at my wife like she hadn't tried to destroy her. But we were building something. We called ourselves The Circle, as a joke, me, Susan, Greg, Angela, and eventually a few others. We started sharing what we had. Screenshots. Letters. Pictures. Every lie Carol had ever told. We put it all together in one document. 57 pages long. Then I got an idea. We'd tried the HOA. We'd tried the cops. Now we were going to try her past. I hired a private investigator. His name was Ray. Ex-cop. Older guy, straight shooter. I paid him out of my savings, money I'd put aside for a new pinball restoration project. Worth every penny. Ray dug deep. And that's when we found it. Carol had a sister in California. They hadn't spoken in 10 years. Why? Because Carol had tried to forge their late mother's will. Got caught. Never charged, but it tore the family apart. Even better? Carol had an arrest record. It was sealed, but Ray found the record of the case. 2003. Harassment and stalking. Charges dropped after. Mental health agreement. That's when I knew what had to happen next. We weren't going to take her down through gossip. We were going to expose her to everyone she pretended to be close to. Ray helped us set up a meeting with a lawyer. We prepared a formal complaint, with sworn statements from 6 neighbors. We included timelines, copies of letters, copies of complaints Carol had filed. And we backed it all with a psychiatric evaluation request, based on her breaking into our house and standing in our kitchen like it was hers. The lawyer sent it to 3 places: 1. The County Sheriff's Department. 2. The HOA Board. 3. And most importantly, Adult Protective Services. Because Carol wasn't just hurting us. She was hurting herself. And legally? That opened doors. But while we waited for a response, Carol upped her game. She started screaming at our boys when they rode their bikes too close to her mailbox. She called animal control and said we had an aggressive pit bull. Our dog's a 10-pound poodle mix. She began leaving notes taped to our mailbox. One said, "Still watching." Another, "Get out while you can." I installed more cameras. I called the police every time. Still nothing. Then one night, 3:22 a.m. My phone buzzed. Motion alert from the backyard camera. Carol was standing at the edge of our fence. Just standing. Looking at the house. Not moving. I called 911. Cops came fast. But again, no arrest. No trespassing sign. No damage. She wasn't doing anything. That's when I made a decision I didn't want to make. I took the 57-page file we built and dropped off a copy at her church. I know it sounds cruel. But I was done playing nice. I didn't include anything illegal. Just the truth. Every lie. Every photo. Every complaint. Labeled. Dated. Organized. The fallout came fast. Carol stopped going to the store. She stopped walking her dog. We didn't see her outside for days. Then one morning, we saw 2 men in suits pull up to her house. One had a clipboard. The other had a badge on his belt. Adult Protective Services had come knocking. We thought maybe it was over. We were wrong. 2 days later, Trina found a dead bird nailed to our back fence. We didn't tell the boys. But we told the cops. And this time, we had enough. Ray's lawyer filed for a restraining order. We got a court date. Carol didn't show. The judge granted it. It was finally on paper. No more contact. No more notes. No more stalking. But that wasn't the twist. The twist came 2 weeks later. Carol's house went dark. All curtains drawn. No lights. Then a "for sale" sign showed up. No announcement. No goodbye. Just silence. But I don't trust silence. Because 2 nights after the sign went up, the trail cam caught her. Not in her yard. In ours. And this time, she wasn't alone. 2 nights after the "for sale" sign went up, my trail cam went off again. It was just past 2 a.m. I opened the app on my phone. There she was. Carol. In our yard. But she wasn't alone. A man stood next to her. Maybe in his 50s, taller than her, wearing a hoodie. I couldn't make out his face, but they were clearly whispering. She pointed toward our house. He nodded. I didn't wait. I called the police, then woke Trina and told her to take the boys to the back of the house and lock the bedroom door. I grabbed my bat and waited by the front door. This wasn't just some petty grudge anymore. It was something darker. 5 minutes later, I saw the man moving up the walkway toward our garage. He had something in his hand, a crowbar maybe. Carol stayed back by the fence, watching. I hit the garage light. The man froze. looked right into the camera above the door, then took off. Carol was gone by the time the cops arrived, but I showed them the footage. This time, the officers were different. Maybe it was the man, maybe it was the restraining order, maybe it was just finally enough. They opened a case. They took the footage. They called it attempted breaking and entering. 2 days later, Carol was picked up at a motel 10 miles away. She wasn't alone. The man was her nephew, someone she'd been hiding. He had a record. Petty theft, drug charges. They were planning something. We never got the full details. But the cops told me enough. She wasn't just trying to ruin our reputation anymore. She wanted to destroy what we had. When she was arrested, they searched her motel room. They found more photos. Of us. Of our kids. Of Susan. Of Angela. Notes. Schedules. A whole damn binder of where we went, what time lights went on and off, which neighbors had cameras. She'd been preparing to hurt us all. Physically. Emotionally. Every way she could. Carol was charged with multiple counts of stalking, harassment, and violating a restraining order. Her nephew was charged with attempted burglary and possession of stolen mail. The court ordered a full psychiatric evaluation. She was declared mentally unfit to stand trial. She was committed. Some people in the neighborhood called it a tragedy. I called it justice. But the truth? I didn't walk away clean either. In the middle of it all, trying to protect my family, I crossed lines too. I trespassed. I spied. I sent out that file to her church. That one stung her the most. I know it. I watched her reputation fall apart. I watched her face the people she pretended to be better than, and I made sure they all saw what she really was. And some days I still wonder if I went too far. But then I look at my wife, who almost lost her job. My kids, who had to stop riding their bikes for months. Our dog, who almost died from poison. And I remember standing in my own kitchen with Carol just there like we didn't matter. So no, I don't regret it. She came after my family with lies and fake photos and silence that rotted us from the inside. I came back with truth. And the truth wrecked her. Her house sold 3 months later. New family moved in. Quiet couple, nice kids. I waved to them the first day. And for the first time in almost a year, I meant it. I still check the cameras every night. Just in case. But Carol's gone. And what's left of her life? I buried that with the truth.